Hello ladies and gents, Brew here, and this is my expectations for Aether Revolt in Dublin. First we're gonna go through some particular cards who basically describe the format and in a way that how do you interact in it rather. So here's the first part of the possible answers you could have. Basically what I figured out is that vehicles, especially flying vehicles, are pretty damn good on this format because they answer planeswalkers. They help you to race against black-green because most of their stuff is actually ground guys and not stuff like Ishkana, of which we can see some return. Then Avacyn is a flash big flyer that actually protects your guys and can clean up the board sometimes. So I really like that. So this is basically answers that can help you to kill planeswalkers one way or another. Gideon is a thing because, well, you can plus him, then they can harness lightning it, they can stasis snare it, or something like that. But then it helps you to clear planeswalkers, and in the meantime, you can just keep on making those 2/2s. So I really like it right now. Smasher in Eldrazi decks is also interesting for all the same reasons, plus it hurts them to kill it. For example, Untouch, same thing. Imagine you go like turn to Prismatic Prism or whatever on turn 2, then on their turn 3 they cast Saheeli, then you can go like touch on the Prism, kill your Saheeli. It's just ridiculous. Amalgam is interesting because it's kinda has haste, or kinda has flash, so to speak. So you can discard some stuff to return back onto that and things like that, and then have it at the end of their second main phase on their turn, so that then you can finish off planeswalkers and stuff like this. I really like this kind of flashy, hasty approach in this format. I think it has the same phenomenon. Plus, it blocks well against a few early creatures from black-green, so that helps. And then it can actually, prevent them from alpha striking or stuff like this. And it's also sort of a hasty creature against planeswalkers because, of course, they can kill it technically with Harness Lightning with enough energy, but then you can try to respawn and make it a 7/8. And then they need something else. And then the 7/8 probably will finish most of planeswalkers in play unless they have a lot of chump blockers for it. But then again, with the trigger, you would be bouncing all of that, except that maybe they have some flashy blockers, for example. Tezzeret is interesting for the same reason as Tezzeret's Touch, because you can just slam dunk him and kill a guy, or, do flashy things. It's 4 mana. It's something that produces a lot of value all the time. Actually, you know what? I think like the ultimate is actually of particular interest against midrange and control because you keep on making those 5/5s. So it's kind of like Liliana's ultimate. And the 6 mana Planeswalker, I mean, the Tezzeret also could be interesting because it's a finisher, then it can kind of help you dig and so forth, just to help you to win the grindy battle. Rishkar is sort of a hasty thing to finish off Planeswalker, meaning that, let's say they did cast a Hilly, they blasted, you had just a Constrictor, the Snake in play, then you can cast Rishkar, put a couple counters on her, that's a 4 power creature, kills a Healy, things like that. But yeah, then there could be a Fumigate, and then you're like, well, it happens. So that's a problem for black-green against Jeskai decks. Now, moving on, we have spells, reactive answers like Unmaken that can answer everything. I'm particularly worried about the lose free clause. You really have to balance that out because the format is sort of aggressive with black-green aggro kind of being one of the better decks in the format. I like Blighted Fan that doesn't cost you anything. I mean, it's not a spell, it's just a land that just stays there. and then it can help you to eat Feldon Guardian sometimes, Hulks and stuff like this. People should probably pay more attention to Tears of Elkut and Devouring Flames. There are lots of Planeswalkers around, and counter spells, and also blue and white creatures, especially the Guardian, of course. I don't know exactly what's the best one, but let's just say that if you want to play Jund mid-range Jund Planeswalkers, you're probably gonna try at least a copy of each in the sideboard, and you can basically flashback both of them with the Goblin Dark Growlers, another card that I think should see a bit more play. Especially if you can flashback some spells like Disintegration and, you know, not only kill a Guardian but kill a Planeswalker, stuff like that. That's pretty damn powerful. So you just need to make sure that stuff that you're flashbacking with Dark Dwellers either kills a creature or kills a Planeswalker. Stasis there is great, gets rid of Gideon, gets rid of Guardian, gets rid of Giant Gearhawk, stuff like that. It's flashy and so on, and very flexible. Because you probably should expect a lot, you would expect some artifact or enchantment heat, but in the right deck it's still okay. I like Rebuke and the new Esper aggro because you can tap Scrounger, you can tap Heart of Kiran for it, you can tap a freaking Clue from the Inspector, so you can do that. So if you go Inspector, you can cast Rebuke on turn 2, which is really powerful. The problem with Rebuff is that while sometimes it's better, but you have Hulks in the format, you have some vehicles, what else? Let's just say that in the right deck Rebuke is better. If you don't really have some artifacts or vehicles lying around, then probably Rebuff is better. Disintegration is just awesome. Like, I don't know, I feel like Mardu vehicles deserve a bit more space on the spotlight, because it can really beat down very quickly against the healer decks, so that they can just survive until turn 5 for Fumigate, or you just have some vehicle and just imply already and keep on playing some free power guys and just keep on activating it, and they always have to tap out and have some answer. But yeah, in Mardu you definitely need to have some backups, for example like Fatal Push or something like that, in case they just try to go for a quick combo. I like Displacer and Drowner, and just different flavors of Eldrazi decks, because Drowner really helps against black-green, so tapping down those giant friends so that you can actually get through. Displacer is interesting because basically you get a lot of value, and you can sometimes outvalue Jeskai, and then it helps you to get through or protect your life total against black-green. Then I think some build of humans is a thing, because just like Mardu vehicles, it can provide a lot of pressure early on and just kind of sneak underneath Jeskai builds, and then without a lot of interaction, without a bunch of fatal pushes and grasps, you can sometimes really outrace black-green if you just pump your team quite a lot. Also, interesting thing to notice is that nobody actually tried absent humans with the snake, with the constrictor, because you get double counters on all your stuff. So that's something to consider at least. Just a small splash. I don't know if mana base will work in your favor, but it's something to consider. Sphinx of the Final Word is interesting. Out of the blue-black control deck, which I think should pick up more, and probably at the Pro Tour as well. because well, Jeskai can't really do anything about it. They can fumigate it, but then you might have a counter backup, and then they can't counter your counters with this thing in play. So it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. The only problem with it is that it's 7 mana, and it's really late game, and you need to have a lot of backups in case they just ignore these things and go for the combo, for example. Abby is interesting because it's kind of a hasty creature against planeswalkers, and then it helps against mass removal, and then could help you race against black-green. Another thing is that if you build your deck in the right way, your Aristocrat's Cat for a deck, with enough interaction, enough instant removal spells against black-green and against Jeskai, so that you don't die from quick beatdowns from black-green or from the fast combo from Jeskai, you can actually justify playing some kind of cutthroat deck, because you can play this sort of attrition war with either of those two, so as long as you have some interaction. Because against black-green, you don't mind your creatures to die. You can sometimes trade or just jump block for a good amount of time and just assemble a combo or just drain them out. Black-green doesn't really have exile effects, and even Jeskai doesn't actually play that many white removal spells that exile. So yeah, I think you should take the advantage of that situation. And then you can use Panharmonicon to kind of outvalue Jeskai, and sometimes outvalue also outvalue black-green, especially if you, let's say, can traverse for something like a Black Gear Hulk and then kill 2 creatures, gain a bunch of life. That's just gas. That's just insane, I think. Whatnot series great against Jeskai, not so much against black-green, of course, because of the grasps, but it's alright. It's alright. Again, with Panharmonicon, you can just do all sorts of crazy things. I like Pick the Brain right now more than Lost Legacy, because as we saw at the last 2 SCG Opens, actually Lost Legacy is not like a definite win. If because they might just side out the combo after sideboard, and if it's just attrition and interaction based matchup, so and Pick the Brain out of black-green X decks could be much more effective. Though just maxing on Transgress is also a good thing to do. I like the Denial in certain very particular decks that can actually surge it out quickly. For example, I was a big fan of this card right after Eldritch Moon, and probably now, because you can actually justify playing Spirits, sort of, even though Asper Aggro is probably better overall. The Spirits could have the better matchups, and then if you're playing a deck with Mausoleums and rattle chains and stuff like that, then you can play instant Selfless Spirits and stuff like that and source this in and counter something, and then they can't counter back. I think it deserves more attention now, while a lot of blue control decks are actually viable. And it's not just about Jeskai, it's various tower decks and sometimes Colossus decks, which is also a great thing to have against Jeskai. Just grind them out, because they don't really have exile cards, but they might actually try to adapt. I think if there will be some successful Colossus decks at the Pro Tour, then Jeskai might actually try to start to run some Stasis Snare Zone or Declaration Stone. Then the Reservoir blue combo deck is actually interesting, because it seems like it's pretty good against black-green, because you just need to not die for a few turns, and then you just go off and win, and they don't really have good interaction against that. Even though it's a blue deck with counter spells definitely on the sideboard and stuff like that, but it could be pretty how to say, complicated against Sahili decks because, well, they can interact with you. The 4-color builds can actually beat down more or less, and then they have the combos. So if you don't have ways to interact with them quickly, or just go off yourself, they might just squeeze in their combo as well. And then I don't think the reservoir decks can actually go the long way. I don't think they can actually grind that well against control decks, so that's the problem. But if the metagame is a lot of aggressive decks, then reservoir is a thing. Because fragmentize is not really that great right now, I would say. You need some instant artifact removal, and it has to be one that doesn't care about mana cost because of gear hulks and stuff like that. And all of that stuff costs free most of the time, even though there are some that cost 2. But you want that extra life, and the one that costs 2 I think only hits artifacts, so that's a thing. Okay, now moving on to some other analysis. So this is the metagame right now on paper and online. So you have a couple versions of Sahili decks, the 4-color and the straight Jeskai, more controlish version. You have green-white tokens, you have all sorts of configurations for green-black aggro and delirium. And then you have the rest pretty much. And I think it's just that here you have such a big meta share for tokens just because there's a lot of it online, because people had the cards, had mastered the deck, and they just started playing it. But I don't think the deck is that good right now. Things might change. But even though people, I think, found more or less the stock list, but it's been underperforming, I think, in the past 2 SG Opens, so that's a problem. And then Marta Vehicles is a thing, and I hope it's gonna be more of a thing, because I think it has a pretty good Sahili matchup, but I'm not sure about the green-black one. Might be okay. Energy Dax is just because it was cheap to build, and it was something that looked kind of obvious in terms of that it's gonna be playable more or less. Not particularly amazing, but decent. It's just one of those cheap beginner decks, which is always on the borderline of being actually playable or successful. Then you have Dynavolt Tower decks, which I'm not sure whether they're better or than Sahili decks. Probably not better. I just don't know what particular matchups are good for that Dynavolt deck. Maybe Black-Green is okay, but I'm not sure if... I think actually other way around. I think the Jeskai matchup is okay for them, because you can always keep Sahili in check with the tower, but perhaps Green-Black matchup is a bit too fast for them, because it's a lot of meat, not insanely fast, but pretty damn fast, and the meat is pretty gigantic because of Hulks and Rishkar, so that might be a bit too much, especially if you're just blue-red. So if your interaction is just some counters and harness lightning and stuff like that, then yeah, you might be in trouble. I could see that being a thing. Then black-white mid-range, I've seen quite a big amount of it online, and this is how it basically looks like. It's kind of like blue-white flash tempo deck with just having removal instead of counters, and having Lilianas in it, but it's similar thing. Out of black you gain Scrounger, which obviously you can play an Esper build. I'm not sure if I like Siphoner, but it helps the Harvesters and it helps you to draw cards. You have pretty good removal suit between Push, Grasp, and Unmaking, so I believe that your Black-Green matchup is probably quite okay. I'm not sure how your Jeskai matchup is going on, But you have a lot of very good creatures, some recursion, a lot of draw and or resistance, rather. Um, on the sideboard, you have all sorts of things. Never been a fan of Campbell. I don't think it's a playable card, in standard at least. Uh, Not a huge fan of Lost Legacy. They can always win with Planeswalkers or Hulks. The rest makes sense. Also, Authority is kind of clunky. You shut down their combo, but they might still have some interaction for Authority, like kill the Authority with Nahiri, for example, or just Fragmentize or something like that. And then, what was it? Talia is actually better because it animates the vehicles. I'm not sure why this deck doesn't like Heart of Kirin with actually some planeswalkers and still quite a few creatures that help to animate it, like Talia. In aggressive decks I like Talia more than Authority, but of course they can always harness Lightning Talias, and Authority is kind of harder to deal with, so that's a thing. Moving on, a couple of interesting decks that I really like and looking forward to play probably next month, or at least playtest them. I mean, not next month, throughout this month, I should say, rather. So as per aggro, actually, my favorite one is not this particular build, but it's close. I kinda like playing 3 hearts instead of just 2. The rest I think is more or less fine as far as the main deck goes. Kinda wanna squeeze in this Sky Sovereign, I mean the flagship, somewhere on the sideboard, I think. The rest of the stuff does make sense, of course. Not sure if you ever want to side and defer Talia. Perhaps because they die all the time against Jeskai or get countered, maybe you just want as many as possible. They're just better than the 40 in an aggressive deck that has not just removal but counter spells. Yeah, Rebuke is pretty good in that deck. And I like that it runs Exemplar, so you can really go under Jeskai, or really tempo out black-green sometimes. So I really want to play test this. This is basically black-white splash green mid-range planeswalker control. Pretty much just splashing a Johnny out of green, I think, and basically making Painful Truths a thing. Just throwing free cards. I don't. There's just a couple of weird random advocates in the sideboard out of green and a couple appetites. Appetites I can get, but like advocate, when do you bring it in? Okay, like you have 1 Quagmire and 4 Vans, so it does something sometimes, but it's weird. I don't particularly understand Valet in this deck. I think Authority might be better here, especially because this build doesn't run Hearts of Kirin. The rest does make sense. I don't think Tendros is a good card right now. It just doesn't really do anything. Yeah. The rest is okay. I don't think Brutality is that great right now either. It doesn't really kill any creatures that you want it to kill. But in some decks that actually abuse Graveyard and need discard outlets, it's okay. Yep. Authority is in the main deck, sorry, so I didn't catch that. But then if you have Authority in the main deck, I don't think you need anything like that in the sideboard. Okay, now on to something that I brewed. It's still in the progress, but it's something pretty funny. So, let's say you want to play an Abzan Planeswalker decks. Then your next thought is probably that you want to play Heart of Kirin. Then, also another vehicle that you want to play to kill Planeswalkers and some small drops is Sky Sovereign. Really helps against Planeswalkers, big flying threats, recursive damage, etc. Pretty good. Then, how do you actually animate hard curing apart from Planeswalkers? Of which you play a few, you could play more, but it's up to you. I think this is fine, but it could be different, depends on which direction you actually end up going. Well, how can you animate it? You can, I mean, the hard curing. You can use this guy. How do you break this guy apart from evolving wilds in your mana base? Uh, well, you just cycle off of Nissa, Vessel, and then some spicy ones like Concoction that you can bring back, and it helps you to bring kill Feldar Garden or Gearhawks and stuff like that. Growth is a cheap activator, fixes your colors, your mana. You could play more, you could of the Growth or Vessel, I'm not sure yet, it's a work in progress. Then what else can you do? You can how do you actually get more value out of Relier and get more bodies to actually crew up the hearts? Well, you run some 2-drops with essentially free power. Well, what's your first choice? Probably Pacifist. You do run some Manlands, Vans, and Quagmires, so Advocate is interesting, but you actually need 2-drops that have free power right away. When Advocate becomes 4-5, it's a bit too late to the party. And then how can you actually do broken things with Failure? Well, you run Constrictor. It's still a free, essentially a free power when you discard a card for the heart, but you can play him on turn 2. Then, let's say you discard something with it. No, you can go Growth, turn 1, Constrictor, turn 2. Next turn, discard Heart to Kirin with the Constrictor. Eat the Growth, cast Failure with Revolt, bring back Heart to Kirin, profit. Then another card I'm thinking to playtest here, or been trying, but I'm still not sure about this deck. I need more testing, but it's just an interesting brew that you might try. So Spirit also is kind of like a Constrictor, but Skulk could be useful at times. It's free power no matter what turn it is to activate Hardikirin, which has Vigilance, so animating it on your turn and on their turn is a thing. Yeah, Liliana helps you to bring back Raelier, so does Nissa, brings back all sorts of things. Small Nissa helps you to spam those tokens, so does Gideon. Gideon helps you to actually make Pacifist interesting, like in green-white tokens, for example. And the rest is just juice. You could try to slice in here the new Ajani, the unyielding one, just to draw more cards, kill some creatures, stuff like that. And then you might want to run Fatal Push somewhere here, some split between main deck and sideboard for interaction. But I think this is fine. Of course, here it's kinda easy to activate Revolt, but I wouldn't count on it way too much. So I have Grasps. Unmaking is great because it deals with Planeswalkers and everything at instant speed. To the Slaughter is interesting because it also kills creatures on Planeswalkers, and Delirium is not that hard to assemble here because of all the vessels, oaths, and stuff like that. And you have some even discard outlets. And it's just a powerful card right now. So basically, Heart to Kirin, Sky Sovereign, Unmaking, To the Slaughter are all very powerful answers right now, and I expect people to abuse their power. Then Fumigate is a very awesome card against Black Rain right now, I think. I still want to play them. You don't have that many creatures. Your win conditions are mostly Planeswalkers and sometimes some of those creatures or vehicles, so Fumigate is actually very easy for this deck. You do want some transgress between main and sideboard, so I just chose only one main deck and 2 more sideboard because you want to be a bit more proactive, maybe game one, and then just be adjust your reactive plan plus sideboard. So hence you have a bunch of complementary things like another concoction, additional transgress, additional fumigate, additional unmaking, additional to the slaughter, this spicy card that you can bring back with the Relier to draw some cards and make them discard a couple of times. So it's pretty sweet with the Relier. Concoction is for the combo or big cogs. As I told you, I'm not sure if I actually need this pesky appetite for unnatural. I think I kind of cover most of the bases. Glare for aggro and for hulks and stuff, just for big creatures that we want to answer. It's probably a bit better than Blestalance in this deck, but I wouldn't blame you for trying Blestalance. I just couldn't find space, and because of Fumigate and some other cards like Linvala or Gear Hulk, I think you get enough life gain. I'm not sure, maybe it's not enough. Will you get some life gain back from Soaring? But that might not be enough, so it depends. So life gain is a question mark. How much do you actually need it? All things considered, well, Tracker of Cousin Cybert is pretty spicy with Relier and the Whirlwind Wilds. You have other spice like Green Warden to get back whatever you want, not just creatures but planeswalkers or removal. You can't really eat it, you don't really have sacrifice outlets, but it's still pretty spicy. Mindbender is interesting because it's a cast trigger, so even if they end up countering it, you still get 2 counters out of their hand, and you have Reliers, for example, to sacrifice for it, or those 2 drops, so your Mindbender often will just cost about 4 or 5, so it's kind of more or less fast enough against Jeskai, I suppose. And then I was thinking about Traverse the Wolven Vault, but you do have some ways to dig through your top decks and through your deck with the Oath and Vessel, and some draw from the Planeswalkers like Obnixilis Sorin. So I wasn't sure what we wanted. I had one in the sideboard previously, so I basically wouldn't blame you if you would put in 1 or 2 Traverse in the sideboard, but main deck it doesn't really work, because all you can technically search for value is the Relier, and that's not justifiable. You can maybe run 1 main deck so that you can free up some space in the sideboard if you really want to. But yeah, this is basically a compilation of value and effective answers to popular decks right now in the format. What I really expect at the Pro Tour is that, of course, Black, Green, and Sahila decks will share big chunks of the metagame at the Pro Tour, and then I expect some Tower or Blue-Black controls to actually try to answer both of them. And then I expect some Vehicles decks to actually try to go underneath both of those decks. What else? I don't think Tokens is really a thing. It's a good deck, but it just doesn't match up very well against the top dogs. I think Esper Aggro is a thing, or some Blue-White X Tempo deck, because it has a lot of cards that are actually really effective against 2 major decks. Energy beatdown decks doesn't seem like they're a thing, just because of Fatal Push and Grasps, so that stuff pushes them away. If you want to build some weird energy beatdown deck, then you probably want to build something like 4-color Tamiyo, because then you can kind of go on, grind the games a little bit. You get access to what was it? Oh, the spirits so you get a counter body. Basically, gosh, how could I forget that name? Also, I think Gen Mid-Range or Gen Planeswalker is a thing. It's not idea that came up. That I came up. Just this is a public opinion. Certain people think like that, and I think I agree with them. You can sort of do that. I don't think Marvel is gonna be a thing. Even with Volamock, it's kind of Colossus decks might be a thing, just to if people would anticipate that there will be more blue decks at the Pro Tour than black-green, but I doubt that. But maybe you can tune your Colossus deck so that you don't lose too fast to black-green, perhaps. Or add some interaction so that you don't die to a fast combo. So that's the thing. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. I don't think there will be complete breakouts out of that Pro Tour. I hope there won't be new bans after the Pro Tour as a result. But I wouldn't be over surprised or too sad if they banned either Saheeli or Felidary Guardian. I don't think I will be too sad about that. Or that wouldn't really amaze me. Okay guys, thank you for your attention. Until the next sale, don't forget to subscribe, check out the social links and the links in the description, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.